You're like the go-to Diddy news channel.
It's the Courtney Burgess thing. It's because the guy Courtney Burgess, which is so funny because I've literally blasted the guy for being just a pathological liar and lying about this whole thing. And and you know what's so funny is despite the fact that I've done all that, right? Look who still texts me all the time. He just texted me just now.
Courtney's still texting you.
At 7:20. It's 7:40 right now. At 7:20, he sent me a text.
Who is this guy?
Courtney Burgess.
What's his deal?
So Courtney Burgess, I kind of started to tell you a little bit before.
Yeah.
Right? Courtney Burgess. So everybody's heard about the Diddy sex tapes.
Yeah.
Right? The CP, right? CP tape, you want me to say the word or no?
Yeah, go ahead.
The child child tape, the sex tape.
Okay, so when he says that in the future, you just abbreviate it so we don't have to fucking
right. So the
edit this.
CP tapes and the assault tapes, the whatever. You know what I'm saying. So what happened with Courtney is Diddy used to date a woman named Kim Porter. Kim Porter had a couple kids of his, and Diddy adopted her son.
Okay.
From another marriage with a guy named Albie Shore, who's a music producer.
Okay.
So Diddy and Porter meet. They're together like 10 or 12 years, and then they eventually split up. They split up, and in 2018, she dies from pneumonia. Now, and a lot of people in Diddy's camp have died from pneumonia. People that have problems with him tend to die from pneumonia. How that's possible, I don't know. People are like, oh, he poisons. I don't understand how you can give someone pneumonia, but whatever. People are saying, oh, it's a certain poison. Well, I'm assuming that they're going to test for this, right? So whatever. I think it's a coincidence, but whatever. The point is she dies. Well, when she dies, the day after she dies, this is all from Courtney. The day after she dies, Kimora Simmons goes to him. And Kimora Simmons used to be married to Russell Simmons. She's now married to another like multi-millionaire. She lives in like a $30 million house. Like she's filthy rich. The idea that she would be hanging out with or even knows who Courtney Burgess is asinine. But whatever. He says she comes to him and gives him one flash drive. Now, this is back in 2018. Gives him a flash drive and says, that flash drive has Kim's manuscript that she was working on, which is a memoir of her time with Diddy. It's got all the dirt on him. It talks all about everything, every horrible thing he's done. And I want you to get it out there. And he says, okay. And he really doesn't. He didn't do it. According to him, he's like, I gave it to a guy. I kind of got busy, and then I gave it to a guy to try and to get a bunch of books printed up, and we printed up some books, and he was supposed to try and help me get it out there. And he's actually like, these are all like street guys. He's selling them out of the back of his car. He got bumper stickers made up. He got T-shirts. It's called. He named it. I forget what the name of his book was, which was equally as just horrible. So it doesn't go anywhere, right? He didn't know how to make. These guys don't. They're not marketing geniuses, right? Like Courtney says that he's a music producer. Anyway, so what happens is years go by. Well, at one point, my buddy Wade, Wade Williams, he's been on your channel.
Yeah.
Wade has a podcast. It's got like 11,000 subscribers, and he predominantly interviews. He interviews mob guys. He loves Goodfellas, mob guys. So he interviews all these mob guys, but he also does other stuff. He'll do porn stars. He'll interview porn stars. He's happily married. He'll interview porn stars, and he'll interview rap. He likes rap and stuff. He grew up during the like Tupac era. So he hears that he ends up hearing about this guy, Courtney Burgess, who used to work with Tupac, because that's what Courtney says. No proof of that. So he ends up reaching a mutual friend, kind of mutual guy knows him. So he contacts the guy. He ends up putting him in contact with Courtney. he tells him, listen, I'd love to have you on the podcast to talk about your relationship with Tupac. Like, I don't know anybody that knew Tupac. And Courtney's like, yeah. He's like, listen, I got something better than that. He goes, I got Kim Porter's memoir. And he's like, really? And he's like, yeah. So he he ends up arranging so that Wade gets a copy of the book that he put out. Wade reads it. Wade contacts me and says, this is what this book says, and starts telling me about the book. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, okay. And he's like, yeah, Kim Porter. And he's like, you know who that is, right? No. You know who Diddy is? I'm like, Diddy. Is that like the guy that is that the Puff Daddy? And he's like, he realizes, like, I'm an idiot. I don't know. He's like, you know who Tupac is, right? I'm like, yeah, of course I did a painting of Tupac. I know who that is. But prior to the painting, I didn't know. So he's like, oh, great. And I'm like, look, he's like, well, I was wondering if you wanted to, what would you do? Could you publish it? I'm like, bro, I don't know anything about this kind of stuff. Like, I wouldn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, was a huge mistake on my part. That was almost as stupid of a decision as me not opening our YouTube channel when you told me start a YouTube channel. Almost as dumb of a decision. But whatever, we're not talking about me. So what happens is Wade is trying to kind of figure out what to do about this book. And he says, I'm going to contact Chris Todd. Chris Todd is a guy who writes salacious true crime books about, high profile crimes. Mm-hmm. Let's just say that. That's the politest way to put it. So he contacts Chris Todd. Chris Todd kind of goes, okay, well, put me in contact with this guy, Courtney. They end up getting in contact. Courtney tells him, I have the flash drive. I also have additional flash drives that have sex tapes and CP tapes on of Diddy. And so Chris Todd is like, whoa. So Chris Todd goes, I could probably do something with that. Chris Todd starts making phone calls because Chris Todd is connected. He knows other reporters. He calls a bunch of reporters, starts saying, he starts saying, I have these tapes. He doesn't have the tapes. He's never seen the tapes. I have these tapes. I'd like to try and maybe we could sell them. Well, while he's running around talking about selling them, and by the way, at the same point in time, people start hearing about tapes. It's because Chris Todd is running around talking about tapes. And so other celebrity or content creators start talking about there are tapes about Diddy out there with this and this and this. And so, and I'm not saying that I'm not saying that Diddy's a decent human being. I mean, he's a scumbag. But I'm saying by running around talking about it, it gets in the ether and people know it's out there and it's being talked about. So while this is happening, Wade and Courtney are saying, publish the book. Yeah. But Todd's not really that concerned about it, right? And they're saying it. Months go by. And then guess whose house gets raided? Diddy's house gets raided. And they grab a whole bunch of surveillance footage. They grab surveillance equipment, guns, baby oil, the whole thing. I'm not sure why baby oil or any of that is illegal, but whatever. It's all creepy. There's a bunch of creepy stuff done.
The baby oil is laced with drugs.
Well, and it's just excessive. Nobody needs 1,000.
A little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess if you don't want to keep going to the store, I buy multiple when I go to buy. Yeah, I buy 4 or 5 things of toothpaste when I go. Mm-hmm. I don't want to keep going back.
Right.
So the point is that all of this is happening. So Chris Todd decides, you know what? I am going to go ahead and publish the book. He doesn't want his name attached to it. So he uses a pseudonym, which is Jamal something, which is supposedly the name that Tupac Shakur is living under, assuming he would still be alive, which is also another ridiculous thing to say. Mm-hmm. So, Chris Todd decides, I am going to publish this book. He puts it on Amazon, and I want to say that it just so happens it still takes him months. He's got it to the point where he's going to put it up on Amazon. Mm-hmm. Diddy gets arrested. I'm pretty sure this is how it worked out. I could have it in reverse, but Diddy gets arrested, and like a week or two later, Chris Todd puts it out. He puts out the book. The book is called Kim's Lost Words. The book is salacious. It is filled with Diddy having intercourse with multiple celebrities, all of them high profile. And I mean, it's not like it's graphic. Mm-hmm. It's, not overly graphic. It's not, it's not written like to be like a thing or even softcore, but it's enough that it's like, you wouldn't want someone saying these things about you.
Right.
And we're talking about, and so I'll give you two of the people. Well, I'll give you a few of them. So it's Bieber, Usher, Jade Smith, Jada. No, Jaden. The
Jaden Smith. That's Will Smith's
Will
kid.
Smith's kid. Mm-hmm. It's got
she's Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg's in there. Albie Shore, which is Kim Porter's ex-husband. And it just goes on and on and on, right? They're just multiple. And these are just, they're disturbing scenes. Like, if you wouldn't want this, even if it was true, you wouldn't want someone to describe it in these ways. Mm-hmm. So it's salacious. So it comes out and it literally sells, like, in 2 weeks, it sells like 30 copies. So Wade contacts me and says, listen, bro, this book is out. Mm-hmm. This guy was just arrested. Diddy was just arrested. This book is out. It's salacious. He's getting a piece of the whole thing. I want to try. These guys aren't advertising it. He's like, I want to try and get some momentum on this thing. He goes, can we do a podcast? And I go, yeah, we can do a podcast. Sure. Mm-hmm. I don't know anything about it, bro. Like, I'm like, yeah, okay. You got to understand, I don't know anything about it. He's like, no, I'll talk. Well, we do an hour and 20-minute podcast, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. It gets 850,000 views. The book, at the same time, within a day or two, Chris Todd, which didn't want his name associated with the book before, because he knows deep down, I think I don't know. He probably had questions. Like, he doubts that it's probably true. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't say that, but he starts doing interviews. Listen, he's interviewed by Associated Press. I think he's interviewed by several large
media outlets.
He's interviewed by Rolling Stone magazine. It does an interview. Yeah. So within 2 weeks, Kim's Lost Words is a Amazon best-selling book, the best-selling book. They sell over $1.5 million worth of books.
Wow.
Listen, and I can tell you right now, the royalties, it's a small fortune. It's a small fortune. How much it brings in. So, but Albie Shore, in the book, it's talking about Diddy doing a threesome with Kim Porter and Albie Shore, and it's just, the whole thing is vile. Mm-hmm. And Albie Shore, of course, is like, what is this? And so he hires an attorney who threatens a lawsuit, and they file a cease and desist order to Chris Todd and Amazon. Amazon takes the book down. Mm. I mean, you can imagine that thing probably would be close to $7-8 million dollars worth, maybe $10 million. I'm assuming.
Did he fight? Did he? So
Chris Todd didn't do much of anything.
No,
he didn't do much of anything. Mm-hmm. What ends up happening is that Courtney Burgess, he's still got a bunch of the original ones that he had printed up. So he's like selling those on some website right now, and for like $200 or something ridiculous. What happens is Chris Todd he starts going on all these podcasts talking about, of course it gets shut down. Mm-hmm. So once it gets shut down, he kind of stops doing the podcast, right? And on the podcast, Chris Todd is saying the tapes exist, that he had gotten a flash drive, that he'd seen the tapes.
Oh, wow.
Whole thing. And so when I end up talking to Wade, I'm like, Wade, Wade's keeping me kind of abreast of some of the stuff, not everything, but he's like, whoa, this happened, bro, this is insane. Chris Todd is calling me, right? I've had him on my program, on my YouTube channel a few times. He's, listen, one of my highest videos is one that Chris Todd and I did on O.J. Simpson. It's got like...
Did you do it right before he died?
We did it, like, literally, we released the video and he died that morning.
Oh my God.
So my video comes out a few hours later, just as they announce it. Like my video's been up like an hour, and then they announce he's dead. My video shoots up to like literally, it's got like 800,000 or 900,000. I don't forget how many views, but it's got like it's close to 1 million views within a week. So anyway, Chris Todd's also texting me, hey, did you see this? Hey, did you hear this? Hey, and I'm telling him like, bro, I think you may be in trouble. Like this is a big deal. This is an issue. You're going to get yourself sued. I've read the book and it ain't good. Like this says some really fucked up things about people. And most of the things that it says about people are deceased. Anyway, what happens is I go to Wade and I say, Wade, I'd like to talk to Courtney Burgess. He says, okay. I'll put you in contact. I called Courtney and I said, Courtney, what's going on? I said, I understand that you had a flash drive. I talked about the whole thing. Keep in mind that when Todd and Wade have talked about this, they've been very vague. Nobody has mentioned Courtney's name. Nobody knows who Courtney is. Todd just says, I got it from a guy who's a Hollywood insider who was close friends with Kim Porter. Friend of a friend. So I said, so I understand you had a flash drive. And he goes, yeah. He said, well, it was actually, it was 3 flash drives. So, okay. And I said, you got it like the day after? He's like, yeah, like the day after. It was a couple days after it was given to me. I'm like, okay, a little different than what Wade said. So I said, you want to come on the podcast? He goes, yeah, sure, I'll come on the podcast. He said, yeah, I'm sick of Todd running around, basically getting all this press, like, And he's like, yeah, I'm a real motherfucker. I'm gonna talk to you. Okay. So I go and we set up the podcast. And just before the podcast, by the way, and I like to mention this because Courtney consistently will tell you he's concerned about getting the word out that what happened with Kim Porter and how horrific it was and how horribly she was treated and what a scumbag Diddy is. And he's doing this for her in her name because she's a good person and everything. But he wants $200 to do the podcast. It started off at he wanted
a fee for the podcast.
He wanted like $500 or something.
Was it in person?
No, just a thing. Just a remote, whatever. So I'm like, but I'm the Diddy thing's big, and I never pay, bro. Never. Like I don't pay for anything. I don't pay for flights. I don't pay for nothing. And I was like, I talked to Colby, and Colby's like, I said, give him a couple. That's $200. That's nothing. Like we can do $200. I'm like, he's like, let's just see. Okay. So we do it. I pay him. We get on the podcast. He mumbles about his relationship with Tupac and all these people that he knows and how he knows Diddy never met Diddy, but kind of knows who he is. They kind of grew up in the same neighborhood and whatever. So that goes on and on. What ends up happening is I start talking to him about the flash drives. Okay. He's like, yeah. I'm like, so have you seen these videos of Justin Bieber and Usher and I'm like, who is it? Those two? You told me that's who that was before. He's, yeah. He goes, that and Will Smith's son. He was like, and he throws that in there. Nobody had heard that before. He just throws it in there. Oh, okay. I said, when you got this like after her death? No, I got it about 3 months beforehand. What? 3 months? Okay, so then was it 1 or 2? How many flash drives? It was like 11. It's a bunch of them. 11? Told Wade once. 1. Told me 3. Now it's 11. Told us it was after. Right then I'm thinking, no.
Yeah, this guy's full of shit.
Something's not right. He tells me, I'm like, who gave them to you? Oh, it was a friend of hers. Now, prior to that, he had told me it was Kamala Simmons. Right? And I've also heard it's Kamala Simmons from 2 other people. So I know he's been, but nobody knows that. Everybody's been that he's talked to, he won't say who it is.
Right.
But that's who it was. That's who he told me it was. So, and by the way, initially he wanted to tell people that, but by this point, Kamala Simmons has already come out and said that the book is fabricated, that it's not true. So I think his initial reaction or his initial plan was, I'll tell people on the inside, but I'll never say it out loud. And people will maybe assume, not realizing the book was going to be a bestseller and Kamala Simmons was going to come out and say, that book's lie. Right. She never wrote any book. That's not it. Anyway, the point is that I slowly start talking to Courtney, and I go, Courtney, so have you seen these videos? Yeah, I've seen parts of them. Like I haven't watched the whole video because, he said, it's two men or two guys having sex. And if you watch a man, even if you watch a man and a woman have sex, that makes you gay. So,
Oh, yeah?
Really?
Wow.
Okay, well, I guess, throw me in that category. I've seen some stuff. So anyway, he's saying if it's two men,
Right.
no.
Right.
So he said, I've watched enough. I'm like, well, then how do you know they were underage? Well, because Bieber didn't have all the tattoos and his hair was different. And I could tell that Usher was definitely underage. So how old do you think Bieber was? He says, he was definitely under 16 years old.
Yeah.
Probably 15, 16. Usher was definitely young. So Jaden Smith, definitely.
Also, DiCaprio was at a bunch of those parties, those Diddy parties, way back in the day.
Yeah, but I mean, I understand, but I mean, we were just talking about this one thing.
Got it.
And I'm kind of talking him, like, trying to understand. So he says he's seen them, didn't watch all of them, but did watch enough to know that these boys are being taken advantage of and that they're all underage. Okay. And I said, do you have the tapes now? Yeah, no, I got them. You still have them in your possession? Yeah, I got them. I go, well, how did you watch them if they were on a flash drive? He goes, I put them into my computer. I watched them on my computer. So you transfer them from the flash drives to your computer. Yes. He goes, and then I ended up wiping them off my computer because I didn't want it on my computer because I use it for editing. I was like, okay. Well, transferring it from one device to another is distribution. And so I said to him, okay, bro, you understand you're in possession of these, right? And he goes, yeah. And I said, so that's you're in possession of CP. And he's like, well, I said, and I said, just having them in your possession, you can get in trouble. That's a federal offense. He goes, I didn't make it. I said, that doesn't matter whether you made it or not.
Right.
You can get in trouble.
Yeah.
You've seen it. You know what it is. If you don't immediately notify the authorities, they could charge you.
Right.
Now, if you notify the authorities, you're fine.
Right.
But you didn't notify the authorities. So I explained that to him. I go, no. And I said, why don't you turn them in? Because the government's going to want these things to be used in part of their defense. I'm sorry, part of their case against Diddy.
Yeah.
This is proof that he's taking advantage of, underage kids, celebrities. Because also he also said that there was videos of him having sex with Jennifer Lopez and, Anyway, so he says, and he's like, so he says, what did he say? I said, bro, why don't you give it to the authorities? And he goes, in my neighborhood, that's snitching. And I was thinking, in my neighborhood, that would be protecting children. Like
snitching on pedos.
Right. He's against that. So I sit there, I'm like, okay, well, so we have another 10, 15 minutes where I'm trying to tell him, look, this is the right thing to do, whatever. He's against it, which is fine. Whatever. That's your problem. So it ends, we post the video like the next day. The comments tear him apart. This guy's a scumbag. He's in possession of CP. That's illegal. Simply being in possession of it's illegal. Yeah. He goes on and on and on about, the comments go on and on. They're like, I'm contacting the authorities. I'm contacting the feds. I'm contacting the U.S. attorney.
Right.
I'm notifying this. I'm notifying. So he gets super scared, right? He even contacts me and he's basically like, man, people are talking about me going, the police, they're talking about this. He goes, and I saw that you liked some of the comments. Like I was hitting, but I'll just bing, bing. And I was like, I don't think that's probably what happened. But I'm like, whatever. But he's freaking out. So that night he goes on another podcast, probably gets another $200, goes on a podcast where he says, yeah, I already gave the flash drives to the authorities. I already gave it to him. Look, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
So the next day he texts me and texts me and says, the feds just raided my house. Oh. And I went, they did? I said, who did? Who raided him? He goes, the Fed. I go, yeah, which agency? He goes, FBI. Homeland Security is investigating, not the FBI. So I write then no. The other thing is, this is the first time you've spoken. There's no way they got a search warrant that quick. Like having been through the system and spent as much time in the system, I know how things work. He's lying. So he's like, they took everything. They took all my stuff, all my equipment, all my computers. They got the flash drives, everything. He's trying to let me know and everybody know by saying, oh, I already gave them to the feds. to let everybody know I'm not in possession of these things. So I go, oh, okay. So I say, hey, can you send me a copy of the search warrant? And he says, I ain't gonna. I don't need to do that. My lawyer's got it. And I go, okay, great. Can ever give me a copy? Can she send you a copy? He goes, I don't put my business out there like that. And I went, okay, bro. I said, listen. I said, I'm not asking for your bank statements. It's a copy of it's a publicly available document.
Right.
I said, I just want to see it because I want to know what they were looking for. They'll say that in the search warrant.
Yeah.
Oh, I ain't about all that. Okay. So I figure we're never going to talk again. A couple days, no, I think about 2-3 days later, he texts me again. Bro, I just got raided again. And I'm like, by who? Homeland Security. And I thought, uh-oh. Now this is enough time to get a search warrant. So he immediately takes a photo and he says, here's a search warrant. He sends it to me. I read it. It's not a search warrant. It's a subpoena. There wasn't a search warrant. It was a subpoena. So probably a couple of guys from Homeland Security showed up, knocked on the door, showed him his badge, and they gave him a search warrant. The search warrant said that it was not search warrant, I'm sorry, a subpoena. Gave him the subpoena. The subpoena was 4 days earlier, the day after I posted my video. So Sunday, my video was posted. Monday, they got a subpoena.
Whoa.
And I know this is true too, because this is what they tell him. Because he's subpoenaed to appear in front of the grand jury with flash drives, devices, like anything to do with any video of Sean Diddy Combs, a.k.a. P. Diddy, a.k.a. Love, a.k.a. the whole thing.
Yeah, right.
And all this device, literally, they've got a blanket thing that they give that they want, right? So he's freaking out. Oh, man. I said, well, sounds like you got to go. He's like, no, I don't like them buildings. You walk in them places, you don't walk out. I said, bro, they just want to talk to you. And, so he ends up getting a lawyer and he goes to be subpoenaed. He goes in front of the grand jury, gets in front of the grand jury. He said, I get in front of the grand jury. They turn on the video that he did with me. They watch the grand jury, the U.S. attorneys, and Courtney watch the entire video, and he stops it like, what about this? Then he asks him a bunch of questions. When they ask him, where's the flash drives? He tells them, I threw them away. Think about this. You told me the FBI took them during the search warrant. That was a lie. Complete lie. So, anyway, so he's lied.
So how do you know about everything that happened during that the grand jury thing?
He's told me all this.
Okay.
And
that's not public record.
No, it's not public record. Most of this is coming from him, but I want to say the New York Times. So the New York Times did an article where they say that Courtney at the grand jury told the grand jury that he had thrown away the flash drives. He'd gotten rid of them. First of all, so this continues to go on, right? He starts going on podcast after podcast. The problem is he starts lying. It turns into it turns into I was given the flash drives by a good friend of Kim Porter's. Went to I was mailed the flash drives. Then it turns into I was given the flash drives by a guy that used to date Kim Porter. Then it turned into I was giving it to a guy who was a music producer who has since died. He will not say. So if you go back and say, then it broke into multiple times. Now he's been given a couple flash drives after her death, 3 or 4 of them before her death. And then 10 years prior, he was given the flash drives that contained the book. The problem is she writes in the manuscript up till the day she dies. So how could you have gotten the manuscript 10 years earlier?
Right.
When you read it, she was writing in it all the way up to the day she died. Like, once again, not an accomplished liar. A liar, but not very good at it.
Yeah.
So once he's been on all these other podcasts, it's my belief that the government obviously has watched a bunch of these podcasts and realizes this guy's a complete liar. And so they then go and they subpoena him again. We want you to come back in front of the grand jury. Only this time, I believe his lawyer has probably determined that her client is a liar. Now, these guys were on News Nation. You understand? TMZ interviewed him on the courtroom steps. He's been in everything. It's huge. If you pull up Courtney Burgess right now, Stephen? Yeah, sure. Sorry. If you pull it up, he's everywhere. He's everywhere. He's huge. He's never had this much attention in his entire life.
That's wild, dude.
So
this guy,
who is Courtney Burgess, the Diddy witness who calls him, blah blah blah.
Go down. Find the New York Times.
Yeah, we're talking about look. It's everywhere.
Burgess.
Times of India.
Yeah.
There's the New York Times too. There's one in the New York Times. There's one in the.
Type in his name and then type in New York Times
type
after.
in New York Times. Right there.
How a tale of Sean Combs sex tapes landed.
Yeah, and this is
one man's.
Right. This is multiple, by the way. There's multiple. Looks like there's multiple articles. There have been multiple. They even mention me. They talk about my podcast, him being on my podcast, coming out on my podcast.
That's bizarre, man. You landed yourself right in the middle of this whole scandal,
Yeah.
Matthew Cox.
Well, so here's the funny thing. So here's what I believe after just looking into everything.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Courtney Burgess, Kim Porter died. I think her name is Cassandra. I forget her last name. She sues Diddy in 2003. No, I'm sorry, 2023. In 2023, she sues Diddy, alleging he would. Remember when Diddy, the tape came out of him beating the girl up and dragging her? That's her.
That's Cassandra.
That's I want to say, I'm sure I've got her name wrong. Cassandra, Cassie. I think it was Cassie. Anyway, she sues him and wants like $40 million. And he comes out immediately and says, this is extortion. It's all lies. She's lying. I've never done anything. It's all bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And then her attorney most likely shows him the tape that they have. He settles the next day. The day after he settles.
Wow.
About 2 months later, CNN leaks the tape.
Surveillance video in the hotel. Yeah.
But that was 2 months after. They release it months after he settled. At this point, this is when I think that Courtney Burgess wrote the memoir as Kim Porter.
Wow.
He then ran around trying to get it published and couldn't. Wade got a hold of him and he said, I got something. When he talked to Chris Todd, he told Chris Todd, I got this memoir, but I also have these sex tapes and CP to get him all excited. Chris Todd's never seen any of this stuff. He's seen some screenshots of some vague screenshots of images that are already on the internet.
Right.
These are not original shots. Anyway, so what I think happened was Courtney wrote the manuscript, said he had these other tapes. He, of course, threw them all away, so you can't prove anything.
Do you think he really had them?
No, I don't think they ever exist. I think all of it was hey, I think I can make some money.
Yeah, it was an opportunity
It was
thing.
an opportunity to make money off of the back of a dead woman who has kids that loved her, that from all accounts was a decent human being. And you saw an opportunity to make some money off of this poor dead woman who died Not, you don't give a shit about her kids or anything else. You know, and the thing is, he made a small fortune. He and Todd made a chunk of money. And here's the real problem. The real problem is Diddy's legal team, right? Here's what they're going to do. And this is why the government brought Courtney back. They probably wanted to get him to go over these lies that he'd been telling on record so they could indict him and say, you've been lying about these things. They wanted him to lie to the grand jury and prove that he's been lying because you've been saying the same thing, multiple accounts. So you're lying to the grand jury. We're gonna charge you. It's obstruction of justice. It's all kinds of stuff that he's in trouble for. But he didn't go back. They claimed his lawyer wouldn't let him go back in front of the grand jury the second time. She claimed the Fifth Amendment. Think about it. Well, what are you going to say that's going to incriminate you?
Right.
So Diddy's lawyers are probably going to try and call him to the stand. The government most likely has to charge him. If they don't, here's the problem. Diddy's lawyers can use him to undermine the government's case.
Right.
By saying, one,
He's
the
a
only
liar.
time the only time we've ever heard about sex tapes that everybody thinks exists is when you guys were talking about them. You were lying about them. You were lying about this book. You've told all these different lies. You're a pathological liar. And we think that it's you and people like you that have caused all of these things about Diddy. Because so far, the government has done one thing they haven't done. As much stuff as they've released, they've never once said, we have tapes showing sexual activity with minors or even other celebrities. We have tons of witnesses that will say it.
Yeah.
But we don't have tapes out of all the surveillance equipment that they got, all the video, everything. They've never come forward to say that. They've said everything else. Drugs, guns, what else? Sex trafficking, all these other things. You mentioned,
Well, did you see
baby oil?
Did you see what Jamie Foxx came out and said? Remember when Jamie Foxx had that crazy medical scare?
Yes,
And then
he said he
came out-
poisoned him.
He said it was poison. Was it cyanide poisoning?
Something. Yeah, I mean,
Can you find what Jamie Foxx said about Diddy and getting poisoned by him?
yeah, I don't doubt for a second that Diddy's a complete creep. And I don't doubt that he probably may have some videos. I'm saying I don't know that the government has the videos.
But yeah, there was a lot of claims about him poisoning people with the baby oil, right? Like using the baby oil laced with like GHB or something.
Yeah, it could go in your skin or something, right? So it goes into your your pores or something.
Right.
But so I think that they can use Courtney to actually help Diddy's case. When I'm sure Courtney has no intentions of that. But the guy can't keep
He didn't have a plan. He just was like going with the flow.
Well, and he can't seem to keep the lies straight.
Right.
So that's the whole Diddy, Courtney Burgess insider scoop. And what's so funny about this is like Courtney, I did a whole thing on it. I put it on my podcast. I did a whole breakdown of the dates and everything. Courtney's still texting me.
Yeah. That's wild.